Far from Earth, on a moon covered in glowing forests and living networks, one wounded soldier gets a second chance at movement, purpose, and belonging. But that chance comes wrapped inside a lie. Avatar is not just a story about alien worlds and giant battles. It is a story about a man who arrives on Pandora with nothing left, only to discover a place so alive that choosing between duty and conscience becomes the biggest fight of his life. The story begins in the future when humanity has spread far enough into space to reach Pandora, a moon orbiting a gas giant in the Alpha Centauri system. Pandora is breathtaking, full of enormous trees, dangerous wildlife, floating mountains, and plants that seem to glow from within. But humans are not there because they admire its beauty. They are there because beneath the ground lies a rare mineral called unobtainium, something so valuable that corporations and military forces are willing to tear the whole moon apart to get it. Jake Sully arrives on Pandora carrying more than one kind of damage. He's a former Marine, strong-minded but physically broken after an injury that left him unable to use his legs. He did not expect to be there. The original mission belonged to his twin brother Tom, a scientist trained for the Avatar program. When Tom is killed in a robbery back on Earth, Jake is offered his place because he shares the same genetic match needed to operate the Avatar body grown for his brother. Jake is not a scientist and he is not prepared for the politics of Pandora. But he takes the chance because it offers money, purpose, and the possibility of spinal treatment he cannot afford otherwise. Once he reaches the human base called Hell's Gate, Jake is dropped into a tense world divided between science, business, and military control. Dr. Grace Augustine leads the Avatar program and wants to understand the Na'vi through learning and connection. Colonel Miles Quaritch commands security and sees Pandora as a hostile battlefield that must be controlled through force. Parker Selfridge, the corporate administrator, cares only about the mineral beneath the trees and the pressure to deliver profit. Jake is immediately pulled between these competing agendas. Then Jake enters his avatar body for the first time and everything changes. His human body is limited and numb. His avatar body is fast, powerful, and alive. The first time he stands, runs, and feels strength in his legs again, the moment hits like a rebirth. He is reckless with it at first, too excited to slow down, and that lack of control gets him separated from the rest of the team in the Pandoran jungle. Night falls, predators close in, and Jake is almost killed before a Na'vi woman named Neytiri intervenes. Neytiri sees something unusual in him. At first she wants nothing to do with this strange outsider wearing the body of her people, but signs in the forest convince her that he should not be killed. She takes him to the Amatikya clan who live around the gigantic home tree, the spiritual and social center of their community. There Jake is treated with suspicion. He looks like them, but he is not one of them. He smells wrong, moves wrong, and belongs to the people bringing destruction to their world. Still, because of signs from Iowa, the guiding spiritual force they believe connects all life, Jake is allowed to stay and learn. Back at the human base, Jake becomes valuable to everyone. Grace sees him as a rare chance to build trust with the Amatikya. Quaritch sees him as the perfect insider, a soldier who can gather intelligence on the clan and especially on Hometree, which stands over a rich deposit of unobtainium. Jake agrees to report back to Quaritch because he still believes this is a temporary arrangement, just information in exchange for the medical help he wants. He does not yet understand that Pandora will force him to choose. Neytiri begins teaching Jake the ways of the Na'vi. These scenes form the heart of the movie because this is where Jake stops being a visitor and starts becoming someone else. He learns to speak their language, hunt with a bow, move through the forest, and ride the creatures of Pandora. He bonds with a dire horse, learns to travel through the canopy, and discovers that Pandora is not just alive in the ordinary sense. It is interconnected. Plants, animals, and the Na'vi themselves are linked through neural bonds and a biological network that seems almost spiritual and almost scientific at the same time. The more Jake learns, the more he is changed by what he sees. Pandora is not wilderness waiting to be tamed. It is a complete living system, and the Na'vi are part of it rather than masters over it. This way of living stands in sharp contrast to the human presence on the moon with its metal walls, armed patrols, and constant hunger for extraction. Jake came to Pandora feeling empty. In the forest, he starts to feel full for the first time in years. His bond with Neytiri deepens as well. She starts as his reluctant teacher, but over time she sees that he is really trying. He is still clumsy and impulsive, but he begins to understand respect, patience, and responsibility. Eventually, their relationship becomes romantic, and Jake is accepted into the clan more deeply than anyone from the human side had ever expected. He undergoes rites of passage, earns trust, and finally begins to say something dangerous even to himself. He feels more real in his avatar body among the Na'vi than he ever did as Jake Sully the human. Meanwhile, Quaritch keeps pushing. He wants exact details on Hometree because if the Amatikya will not move willingly, the military will remove them. Parker tries a softer version first, hoping Grace and Jake can convince the clan to relocate. But this is never a real negotiation. The humans are not offering equal ground. They are demanding that the Na'vi abandon their homes so mining can continue. Jake now understands what Hometree means to them, and the request feels obscene. Still, he keeps stalling, trying to buy time while the pressure from the base gets worse. The turning point comes when Jake and Grace fail to move the clan and Quaritch decides he is done waiting. The military launches an assault on Hometree using gunships, missiles, and overwhelming firepower. The destruction is horrific. The great tree falls, many Na'vi are killed, and Neytiri loses her father, the clan leader Idukin. In one violent operation, any illusion that the humans can coexist peacefully under the current system is destroyed. Jake tries to warn the Na'vi, but when they discover he has been reporting back to the soldiers, his betrayal cuts deeper than any apology can reach. He is bound, rejected, and seen for what he has been, a spy who came smiling. Back at Hell's Gate, even Grace is no longer useful to Quaritch. She, Jake, and a few allies are detained when they protest the attack. But they escape with the help of sympathetic pilots and technicians, including Trudy Chakin and Norm Spellman. Grace is wounded during the escape, and the group flees to the Floating Mountains, a region so turbulent that human aircraft cannot easily track them. Jake knows that if he has any chance of earning back the trust he lost, it has to begin there. What he does next is one of the boldest choices in the story. He goes after the Toruk, the giant flying predator feared and revered by the Na'vi. Very few have ever ridden it, and those who did are remembered as legendary figures who united the clans in times of great danger. Jake manages to bond with the creature and returns riding it into the Na'vi gathering place. The sight shocks everyone, including Neytiri and her mother Maud. It does not erase his betrayal, but it proves he is willing to risk everything for the people he once used. More importantly, he finally speaks with total honesty. He tells them the humans are coming for all of Pandora, not just one tree, and that they must stand together or lose everything. This sets up the final movement of the story. Jake helps unite the clans of the Na'vi, gathering warriors from across Pandora for a last stand against the human assault. Grace, still dying from her wound, is brought before the Tree of Souls, a sacred place where the biological and spiritual network of Pandora feels strongest. The Na'vi try to save her by transferring her consciousness into her avatar body, but the attempt fails. Her death matters because she represented the possibility of true understanding between worlds. With her gone, the conflict hardens into open war. Quaritch prepares a decisive strike. His target is the Tree of Souls itself because he understands enough to know that destroying it would break Na'vi resistance at the deepest level. He does not believe in Iowa, but he believes in crushing morale and destroying symbols. The human attack force lifts off with bombers, gunships, and heavily armed support. In response, Jake leads the Na'vi into battle from the air and the ground, riding the Toruk and trying to hold back a technologically superior enemy with creatures, arrows, and sheer knowledge of the terrain. The final battle is chaotic, emotional, and huge. At first, it looks like the humans will win. Their weapons tear through the Na'vi ranks and their aircraft dominate the sky. But then Pandora itself seems to answer the call. Animals stampede into the fight, predators attack the soldiers, and the balance shifts just enough to give the Na'vi a chance. Whether this is Iowa answering prayer, the planet responding as a living network, or both, the movie leaves room for wonder. What matters is that the people fighting for Pandora are no longer alone. Jake faces Quaritch directly as the battle narrows around the Tree of Souls. In human form, Quaritch enters a massive armored suit and keeps hunting Jake even after the larger battle has turned against him. This final confrontation becomes brutally personal. It is not just military versus Navi anymore. It is the embodiment of domination against the possibility of connection. Quaritch tries to destroy both Jake bodies, first his avatar and then his vulnerable human self lying inside a remote link unit. Neytiri arrives in time to stop him, killing Quaritch and saving Jake when he is seconds from death. By the time the smoke clears, the humans have lost. Their offensive has failed, their moral claim is gone, and the remaining forces are driven back. Parker and most of the surviving personnel are forced to leave Pandora. Only a few are allowed to stay, mainly those who stood against the destruction or worked to understand the moon rather than exploit it. The balance of power that seemed so absolute at the start of the movie is completely reversed. Then comes the final decision Jake has been moving toward from the moment he first opened his eyes inside the Avatar body. He chooses Pandora completely. At the Tree of Souls, the Na'vi carry out the consciousness transfer Grace once could not survive. This time it works. Jake leaves his human body behind forever and wakes up fully in his Na'vi form, no longer divided between worlds. The ending is simple but emotionally huge. He came to Pandora as a replacement for his dead brother. He leaves his old identity behind because he finally chooses where he belongs. Avatar works because underneath all the spectacle, it is built around transformation. Jake is not just learning a new culture, he's being forced to confront the emptiness of the world he came from and the violence hidden inside its ambitions. Pandora is not perfect or simple, but it offers him something Earth and the military machine never did, a meaningful relationship to life, to community, and to purpose. His love for Neytiri matters, but even more important is his awakening to a world that cannot be measured only by what can be mined, sold, or conquered. By the end, Avatar is not just a story about aliens and invasion. It is a story about choosing connection over domination, belonging over control, and life over profit. And when Jake opens his eyes for the last time, what he is really seeing is not just Pandora. He is seeing the first true home he has ever had.